Hello, welcome back to the Kristin Carrera podcast. I'm your host, Kristin. Welcome back. And if you are new, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, like, follow along, and comment. I love to hear where you are on your journey, wherever that may be. Any comments that you have, please leave them below in the comments. I love to go back and forth and have conversations with you guys because that is what my podcast is all about. It's just a conversation based off of my journey, based off what I'm learning. And I just love to constantly question things. And so today's podcast, I am diving into something that has been heavy on my heart because it's something that I have dealt with myself, and it's why doctors do not talk about the carnivore diets and why it's important to listen to your body. And of course, there are some doctors that are out there talking about them. You can check out some of my favorite doctors listed in my description. And however, out of the hundreds and thousands of doctors that are out in the world, many of them are against carnivore, nutritionists, dietitians. You will see it all over the internet. And there's a lot of controversy around the carnivore diet. And a lot of doctors are just not fully on board. So why is this? If you are somebody who is struggling with your health issues and just feels like you're not getting these full answers from traditional medicine, this is something that you need to hear. So first off, let's talk about why doctors might not be talking about carnivore, right? I wonder why. Well, we can go into many reasons as to why I really, truly think doctors are not talking about carnivore. And I will say that sadly, I really think that the health industry wants to keep you sick. Because if you are sick, they make more money. And so it just makes sense. But that is a different subject and a different podcast altogether. So today, in traditional medicine, diets that are based mostly or completely on meat are still seen as somewhat out there, right? Crazy, different. How else can I put that? Doctors are taught, they're literally taught to recommend things like low-fat diets, more fruit, more vegetables, avoid things like red meat because of the concerns about heart health, cholesterol, cancer. So a diet that's all meat is not exactly something that is widely recommended. But here's the thing. More and more people are turning to the carnivore diet. I see it every day. And a lot of them are seeing serious improvements in their health, which is why it's shocking to me that not more doctors are questioning this revelation. Why are there so many people feeling good? What is going on? Should we study this more? Right? Things that I would assume somebody in the medical field would want to do, even nutritionists. But the truth is, medicine can sometimes be slow to catch up with real world experiences. I'm reading this book, and think of it this way. Kodak cameras, right? Back in the day, when phones started to have cameras, they thought that it was crazy, that wasn't going to work, not going to happen. They are not going to outdo them. Well, as the years went on and the cameras improved, where is Kodak now compared to your smartphone that everybody is using taking photos? Okay, think about that. The internet. When the internet came out, people were opposed to it. They didn't think that it was going to be this huge thing that took over the world. Like everybody in the world uses the internet. Sometimes we shy away from the things that we do not understand. And I always try to tell people, do this one thing. Open your mind for 1 second, okay? Do not think about why this is bad for you, why you think it's bad for you. And instead ask, can it be good for me? Why? Like, what are the reasons? Let's discuss. Play devil's advocate. My husband loves to do that. I'm going to play devil's advocate. Okay. I understand what you're saying, but, and it's true, you got to do that sometimes to try to understand the reasoning behind why this person over here wants to do something. Try to understand that opposing team. Because if we do not question science, what are we doing? What are we doing? You might think, okay, but does it really work? For me, personally, the carnivore diet changed the way I thought about nutrition, not only for myself, but for my kids, for my family. It was a huge, revelation, light switch, opening your eyes to seeing what's in front of you, right? I never in a million years thought that I would do carnivore. I was that person that said out loud, it is crazy. Plain and simple, right? I never thought that I would have a podcast talking about the carnivore diet or health and nutrition and living a non-toxic life and all these things. I actually started noticing things before I started carnivore. I really started noticing the chemicals and the toxins that are in ingredients like shampoos and your soaps and things that we use around the house. I kind of started there. And I guess that eventually led me to opening my eyes about the carnivore diet. Even though I was one of those people who were closed-minded at first and stubborn, until I finally said, let me listen. Let me open my ears, open my eyes, and see why this person thinks this. Dr. Sean Baker, right, was the person that opened my eyes to it. And I didn't think that I would be eating over a year 90% of a meat-based diet. Why? Because it does sound crazy. Because it's not what the media tells us, right? It's not what doctors tell us. Influencers, nutritionists, they will use words that I will not say here about the carnivore diet because they truly do not understand it, is my belief. I think that they put it down because they don't understand it. Because it's hard for them to fathom the thought that what they learned in school could possibly not be true. What they learned, what they're teaching is false. And that's hard to understand because I went to school to get this education, right? Think about it, as a doctor, as a nutritionist, and now you're telling me that what they taught me in these textbooks could be wrong? How could it be? Well, that's why it doesn't make sense to them. But the sad part is that they aren't open to questioning, why is this healing others? Can this really be something that works? Will it give them long-term effects? That is a normal question when the science isn't behind us. But should we start having more information on this? Should we study this more? Like, why are we not doing that if you think it's bad? Okay. So I went through years of chronic illness. It started in my early 20s. I had to remove my tonsils, and I was told that I needed to check my thyroid because I was on the cusp of having thyroid issues. So I had already had some anxiety. I had sweats and different issues. And so I went to get checked out, and they did tell me that I had Hashimoto's. which is a thyroid autoimmune disease. He told me that it was on the lower end and there was really much to do about it. He didn't offer medication, he didn't offer solutions, and he never once mentioned or asked what I was eating. So, years later, I find out that now I have microscopic colitis. I was in my 20s. Fast forward to my 30s after my children, and now I have Graves' disease. The thyroid issue changed from Hashimoto's to Graves' disease, and that doctor did put me on medication for my Graves' disease, and some of my symptoms diminished. However, I still had a lot of symptoms that I explained to him. I told him my concerns, like my anxiety, my hair loss, things like that, that we thought was coming from the Graves' disease. And he said, well, your levels are normal now on medication, so that's not what is causing these things. And it just, that was it. There was no other discussion. There was no, maybe you should see this doctor. Maybe we should run these tests. What are you eating? None of that, right? I felt like a hot mess. I had depression, brain fog, fatigue. I mean, I had the doctor literally say to me, you are too young to have all these things. Yeah, that is the point. That's why I'm here. That's why I need you to run hormone tests. And I want you to do tests to see if this is what's causing my anxiety. And I want you to check my vitamin deficiencies. And I had to tell her what to do, which should not be my job. Isn't that what the doctor went to school for? So, as you can see, I was very frustrated. My microscopic colitis, I had semi under control, where I kind of knew that I couldn't eat certain foods that would trigger it. However, a lot of times I didn't know what was triggering it, and I just was running to the bathroom. It's very, very bad stomach pains, nausea, sweats. It's bad. I had no energy, and I couldn't find anything that worked. I was meditating, I was working out, and I was eating a quote unquote balanced diet. Yes, I get all the time, just eat your fruits and vegetables. I was eating my balanced diet of fruits and vegetables and meats and less meats and more veggies. And I tried it. Okay, guys, I tried it and it was not working. So guess what? Once I started the carnivore diet and I started to actually listen to my body, things started to change. It's not about following the latest trend, which is what a lot of people may do and what a lot of people think everybody is doing. But that's not what it's about. It's not about forcing yourself to do something that your body is not agreeing with, right? It's about figuring out what your body responds to, cutting out what doesn't serve you. So for me, cutting out those vegetables and the fruits and all things was something that my body needed. And doctors don't always have the answers, and that's okay. Sometimes we need to dig deeper, trust ourselves. And I know that can be scary, especially when you've been told for years that certain foods are bad for you, right? It's ingrained in our brain since we were little. So I'm going to break down a couple things that I learned on my first 100 days of carnivore. One of the biggest surprises for me was discovering that I had a high histamine allergy. Had no idea what high histamines was. Had no idea that this was a thing or that I even had it. So bone broth is a big no for me. And you will hear a lot of carnivores saying that you should have bone broth. It's very healthy, all the great things, which it is. But for me, it is a big no. I started to make homemade beef broth, and my body can handle that better. So these are just things that I learned on my journey. Another surprise was that I can't have pulled pork that my husband smokes in the grill. The long cooking time causes a buildup of histamines, which triggers my allergies. But brisket, which is cooked just as long, I'm okay with. So this is why I say there's no one size fits all, and everybody is different, right? Because not everybody's going to have the same reaction to a certain food the way that my body has reacted to it. So what works for one person may not work for another. And it's all about listening to your body. I can't stress that enough. So in this process, so much more than just following a diet, it's an elimination process. You're cutting out all the crap, seed oils, added sugars, processed junk. Once you do that, you'll be amazed at how much better you feel and how and where your body will take you. But this journey is not a race, and you have to have patience with yourself. People want to feel great overnight, and that's just not the case for many people, especially depending on what you are trying to heal in your body. So this is where it gets tricky. Growing up, I was always taught that we needed fruits, vegetables for fiber. Margarine was healthier than butter. Eggs were bad for you depending on the time of day. But science is always changing, right? I mean, think about it. One year we're told fats are bad. The next year we're told fats are good, but carbs are the real enemy. Then another year, eggs are the devil. They're evil. It's hard to keep up. I get it. It's frustrating. It's confusing. What do I eat? What don't I eat? I just want to be healthy. But that's why I find it so interesting that some people don't question science. Just because there's a study, it doesn't mean that it's 100% accurate. There's always flaws in studies, always variables that could skew the results. So while studies are important, I think they are important, I think it's even more important to listen to your body. So for me, carnivore was that true revelation. I was diagnosed, like I said, with microscopic colitis, Hashimoto's in my 20s, and in my 30s, it turns into Graves' disease. Again, depressed, anxiety, fatigue, brain fog, all the things. And it was hard to be happy. I had no energy. And I was constantly running to the bathroom here and there when something triggered my colitis. And I just was falling into this depression where I didn't know myself anymore. And I was trying to figure it all out. And I was doing all the things. And why wasn't it working? And I was going to the doctors and they weren't helping. And so it was a hard time in my life that I was going through. And did the doctors offer me meds when I went to the doctors? Yes, of course, because that's what they do. But did they ever talk to me about nutrition? Did they ask if what I was eating could be triggering my symptoms? No. There were no real answers, no real solutions. And it wasn't until I started exploring different ways of eating and found the carnivore journey and listening to my body that I finally started to get my life back. And that's why I share my story with you, because carnivore possibly is not going to be for you. Maybe it's animal-based, maybe it's keto, but you have to start somewhere in order to find what works for you. And I can't tell you how important it is to take control of your own health. And sure, there are times and a place for medication, but in my case, diet is what made that difference. So there you have it. That is what I wanted to talk to you about today. We've covered why the carnivore diet might not be on your doctor's radar, why it's important to listen to your own body. And I know not every doctor is on board with carnivore, but that doesn't mean that it's not a powerful tool for so many of us. It, at the very least, is a great elimination diet to find out what might be harming you. And the more we take our health into our own hands, the more we realize that science, while important, is always evolving. It's always evolving. So the next time that you talk to your doctor, think about what works for your body. Remember, don't be afraid to ask questions. Trust your instincts and listen to what your body is telling you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you found this episode helpful, make sure to subscribe to never miss any updates, follow, share, do all the things. And don't forget to check out my YouTube channel of my first 100 days on Carnivore. I go through all the ups and downs. I write everything in a journal. I talk to you about what I wrote in my journal. And it is not pretty the first 100 days, but I finally started to see that shift in my body, that shift in my demeanor, that shift in my depression and my anxiety. And it was so worth working through the hard to get to how I am feeling now. So think about that. Remember, always open your mind as to why somebody is doing something. Think about why they are doing it. Remember that science is always changing, that we need to question things. It's always good to question things and learn. So see you on the next podcast.